Welcome everybody to this morning's Cervello Live. I'm your host, as usual, Chris Ames. Hope you're doing amazingly well. And we are joined today by the legend that is Phil Fitzgibbons. How are you, Phil?
Morning. I'm very well, thank you. I think a legend might be a bit of an overshoot there, Chris.
Well, I like to bring people up, so it's all good. And we're going to be talking today. I'm really excited about this conversation because we're going to be talking about health, where it fits into your overall well-being, and why focus on health and nutrition, something that personally I've not been particularly good at over the past 44 years.
You're not alone, Chris. We all have a little bit of that.
Well, you know what? I've been, as you know, Phil, I am like a pretty sort of active person.
Yeah, very,
I like to run and I like to do stuff. But you know what? Somebody said to me, it was another guy I know, said to me, "You can't outrun a bad diet," and I've been probably trying to do that for the last 44 years. So I'm funny enough, and we'll talk about this later on. What I'm really excited to do is for you to share some of the tips from your sort of knowledge and experience on making sure we eat a bit better as well as doing that.
No worries.
Before we do that, as we normally do with Cervello Live, I want to share a few tips in terms of thinking about your money in a different way, sharing a little bit about the work we do here at Cervello to help you live the life you want, using money as a tool to help and enable you to do that. So what I normally do is pick a different subject every week to talk about on Cervello Live. And what I'm going to do is talk about why you should think about reviewing either your financial plan, or if you haven't got a financial plan, building a new one. And there's really 5 tips that five triggers that normally either make people review their existing financial plan or start thinking, you know what, I've put this off, like me with my nutrition. I've put this off way too long. I really need to take ownership and take action. So let me share those 5 triggers. And certainly if there's one where you think, you know what, I have been thinking that, and I need to sort of take some action on that, come and have a chat with us at Cervello. We will help and support if we can. First one is, and again, certainly over the last couple of years, this has been the biggest thing that has triggered people to come and have a conversation with us, is change. So change in your life. Now, certainly change happened to us all in 2020 when COVID happened and lockdown happened, because we didn't have a choice but to make change. But what COVID did do is make us look at our lives in a slightly different perspective and say, look, time is valuable, time's more important. We don't know what's going to come around the corner. What changes do we want to make to our life to make sure that we can live the lives we want? And certainly we were in a position at Cervello where during lockdown 1, we spent a lot of time keeping people calm and making sure they made sensible longer term financial decisions. But as sort of 2020 continued, 2021 came along, and now in 2022, a lot of people are saying, I spent some time in 2020 thinking about what my ideal life looks like, and that has meant that I want to make some change. So a lot of that change is work less, enjoy time more, make sure you're getting that balance right, and getting the right balance between work and life. Now, interestingly, you won't hear me say retirement too often, okay? And the reason, and again, it's funny, I was speaking at an event last week, and I said, I don't speak about retirement too often. And there was a lady in the audience in her early 40s who looked at me like I was absolutely mad, because she was looking forward to retirement. But interestingly, a lot of my clients who are 50 plus and thinking about what's next in their life actually want work as a component part of their life moving forward, just less of it. So, and that work then, if they achieve financial independence, might not be paid work. It might be volunteering. It might be something that gives them meaning and purpose, as opposed to something that gives them money. But you know, making that transition and understanding where you are financially allows you to make some of those choices. On the other end of the scale, I've recently taken on a new client where changes happen to them because they've got a new addition to their family. So a guy in his early 40s who is in a position where he's just started his family, a little bit later than me because I was in my 20s when I did it, but just started his family. And he's now looking at his life and going, what do I need to do financially, not only to look after me, but to look after the kids? Other change that can happen to you is redundancy. You know, that's a perfect time to look at where you are financially, look at sort of where your life's going, and effectively reassess that financial plan. Business sale is another big one. You know, business sale, interestingly, is one of the things that changes people's perspectives. And what we'd recommend if you're a business owner is start building your own personal financial plan way before you sell your business. So I'd suggest that typically sort of 5 to 7 years before you really think about it, what's your own personal financial plan? How reliant are you on the value of your business to achieve that financial plan? And how do you then get your business to a value that makes sure that you can live the life you want? And that then allows you plenty of time to plan for the future. And unfortunately, particularly over the last couple of years, tragedy has been an important perspective changer because we've all experienced some sort of death, either close to us or more broadly in our communities. And it does change perspective. And I think actually what we've found is talk to clients, having that, you know, having COVID take so many lives has been in a situation where they've said, look, I need to start living for today as opposed to tomorrow. And financial planning is about giving you the information to do that comfortably and without fear and risk, and getting the balance right to make sure that you can afford to do it and still afford to continue your lifestyle. Our job as financial planners is to do that. It's to fit the life with the money and make sure you're doing that. And you can plan independently. And I'd suggest that if you don't feel you need a financial planner, still have a plan, still make sure you've got a plan. But our job is to help you sort of transition those two things. Second thing that should trigger a financial plan is getting paid more. So if you've increased your earnings, it is fundamentally a positive thing. You know, you're earning more money and that's great. However, in my experience, a lot of our clients do earn certainly a lot more than the average. It does generate some issues. So let's talk a little bit about that. The big one that I'm experiencing with my clients at the minute, and this applies if you earn £100,000 a year or more, is something called the 60% tax trap. So what's that? 60% tax trap is what happens when you earn over £100,000 and you're paying 40% tax already because you're a higher rate taxpayer, but you start to lose your personal allowance. So effectively, you're in a position where you're paying 40% and you're losing your personal allowance at the same time, which means that the effective rate of tax you pay is 60%. Now, that is painful.
Yeah, ouch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, Phil, you're then over the threshold of not keeping most of the money. You know, like you're paying the majority of it. And the other thing that happens when you start earning really decent levels of income is the amount that you can pay into pensions, and it's not 100,000; it's significantly more. It's about 250. And we've got clients who have experienced this as well. Is that the amount that you can, because if you're earning, you know, a decent income, you can potentially use strategies to mitigate that, pay more in pensions, use tax efficient wrappers to mitigate some of that. The challenge you've got is the government know this. And what the government have done is said, if you are a significant earner, 250,000 plus, we're going to stop you paying into pensions as much. So effectively, they reduce the amount that you can pay into pensions to £4,000 a year, when typically it's £40,000 a year. So those are things that, and again, you know, completely appreciate these are first world problems, but certainly, you know, if you're earning decent levels of money and your earnings have increased, definitely if it's increased over the 100K mark, you should be reviewing where you are and certainly saying, what do I need to do to mitigate some of that? Now, the good news is there's stuff you can do. If you are a business owner and you run a limited company, one of the options you've got is to choose how you get paid. You know, effectively, I run a limited company here at Cervello. I can choose what my salary is, how much I take in dividends, and how much I pay into my pension. And my job as a business owner is getting the balance right between what I put in each pot. And business owners, you've got the flexibility to do that. If you're employed and you're a high earner, you've typically got a little less flexibility. But one thing you should definitely do is consider a salary sacrifice. Now, why is salary sacrifice? What is it and why is it important? Salary sacrifice is when effectively you give up some of your salary. So if you're on £110,000, for example, you can say, I want to get myself under that 100 grand. So I'm going to give up £10,000 or £12,000, but it goes directly into your pension. Now, so you're sacrificing it to put it directly into the pension. Now, why would you do that? Well, firstly, you come out of the 60% tax trap because you've reduced your earnings below the 100K. You save the national insurance 2%, so you're 62% up. But the real genius thing, and the amount of people who are in this earnings ratio who just don't know this, when you sacrifice an element of your salary, your employer wins as well. So your employer saves 15 and a bit now % employer national insurance contributions. And they've got three choices with that contribution. They can keep it as an employer, they can keep it as a business, they can give it to you, or they can share it. Now, what you'll find is even if you sacrifice your salary, if you don't ask about what the employer is going to do with their bit, their saving, it's likely they'll keep it. So what I definitely recommend you do every single time is go to your employer and say, look, I know you're saving your employer's national insurance. How do you feel about either giving it to me because it's money you wouldn't have had anyway if I wouldn't have sacrificed that salary, or sharing it? So you're saving 15%. Let's just do half each. So I'm another 7.5% up. So let's say, for example, you've got somebody who's in on 110,000. They sacrifice 10 grand. The net cost of that at the end of all that could be as low as about £2,500. So 10 grand contribution, £2,500 it's actually cost them because they're getting 60% tax back because they're coming out of the 60% tax trap, and their employer really generously says you can have my 15% as well. So 75% you're saving just by making that salary sacrifice contribution. The amount of people who don't know about that often surprises me. So if you're a high earner and employed, certainly check out salary sacrifice and check out sort of what it can do. Third thing that typically incites a trigger for a review of the financial plan is social comparison. Now, I'm not a big fan of social comparison because that keeping up with the Joneses element of how we make decisions often leads to us spending money we don't need to and doesn't make us happy. But there are elements, and I've had it over the last few years, of clients coming in to have a conversation with me, and I ask sort of what's inside the conversation, and it might be Dave and Sue next door have decided to retire, go on more holidays, stop work, change their lifestyle, and they're really having a good time. If you're in a position where you've been having conversations that involve, why are we not doing more of that in terms of how we're spending our time, that might be a benefit of social comparison, because it does allow you then to turn around and go, you know what, actually, I want to make sure that I'm in a position where I'm spending more time with the neighbours because they're going away, and focusing on that element. I think for me, social comparison is bad when it makes us spend more on the things we don't need. But actually, if it makes us focus our time and attention on the things that matter, which is relationships and time, it's actually a really good thing. And let's never forget that money is a tool for us to live the lives we want. The element that's the valuable commodity, the elements, is the relationships we build, and how we spend that time, and making sure you're doing that, in whatever sort of floats your boat, whatever makes you happy, is really important. So effectively, if you've got people in your life who are doing that, and it's nudging you to think, could I do that? You should probably sort of look at your financial plan and see if you can. Next, number 4 is your attitude to work has changed. Okay, so often people come and see us when they feel like they've sort of plateaued at work, they can't do any more. They're in a position where they've reached a stage in their lives where they've had a successful career, but just don't feel that they can take it any further. And perhaps they've worked there for the majority of their career, and they just don't see how they're going to move next. But interestingly, what we often find is that having a financial plan often gives you a change of perspective about work. And I had a client I took on about 2.5 years ago now, who said, Chris, I'm sick of work now. I've had enough. In his late 50s, worked for this particular company for 30 odd years. Sick of work, had enough. Don't think I can do any more. Can you tell me whether I can afford to stop? And I was like, absolutely. We built his financial plan, and presented the financial plan. I said, right, okay, so what's your thoughts about what to do about work? He said, well, I need to think about it, and I'll come back and tell you. 2 weeks later, he was back in my office, and he said to me, I'm carrying on. And I was really surprised, Phil, because it was one of the things were like, you told me you were like so positive about like sort of ended, like if you can afford to, which I've told you can, about stopping work. And he said to me, yeah, but Chris, knowing I can has changed both my perspective and my attitude. So interesting, so interesting. So if your attitude to work has changed and you're not enjoying it anymore, maybe you just need to know that you've got some choices to change your perspective on it, or maybe it just gives you the option to do what you really want to do and change the way you work or where you work.
Yeah, it gives you a bit of internal power, freedom to have that flexibility rather than feel like it's a necessity.
100%. Financial plan, having a really good financial plan isn't about money fundamentally. Money is the tool. What a financial plan gives you is choice. And effectively, too many of us sit in the dark when it comes to making those decisions. And the idea of a really robust, good quality financial plan, either if it's built by us or built by you watching, is it turns the light on. It then allows you to turn around and go, here's where I am, here's what I need to achieve, and here's how I get there. And interestingly, for this particular client, turning the light on allowed him to go, you know what, I'm just going to have more robust conversations about doing the work I love with my current employer, and I'll be happy. And if that changes, I've always got the choice to go. Because it's not about the money anymore.
Yeah, open his horizons and stopped him feeling trapped.
100%, 100%. I love that feeling. I mean, look, so the bit that I love most about being a financial planner is that moment where you get to say you're never going to run out again, because there is a sense of freedom and relief that gives people, which I absolutely love. Now, let's not pretend that work doesn't give us sort of other benefits, because clearly, I've got clients who are never going to run out of money again, retired fairly early in their early 50s, and returned to work because they wanted some intellectual challenge, and they were missing the social side. So there's other elements that work gives us that isn't only about the money, but having the choice is the fundamental element. And lastly, we are increasingly seeing a lot of clients who come to see us because financial planning isn't only about them, it's about the next generation and the generation after that, and increasingly the generation before. Increasingly, the work we do isn't about an individual or a couple, it's multi-generational. It's about making sure that the next generation has the benefits of having a financial plan. And often when we're in a position where we know that people are not going to run out of money again, part of their thinking is, well, how do we make sure that we help the kids? How do we make sure they're given the start on the housing ladder, or a leg up? Now, interestingly, Phil, there's always that element of conversation, and it's happening in my head at the minute, of not spoiling your kids and making sure they work for it. I haven't got the answer for that one. It's one I'm trying to.
I don't think that that question ever goes away. But
I know.
I think I guess it's about you want to assist them in what they want to do, but not spoil them and create entitlement and things like that.
I suppose the big thing, you want them to maintain the work ethic and values that have allowed them to be in that comfortable situation in the first place. But once I work that one out, that will be like a 2-hour Cervello live special. Because I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
I was going to say, I'll tune in for that one. I'll tune in for that one.
But what increasingly what we do support clients with is helping them make sure that not only they're okay, but also their family are okay. And that manifests itself in a couple of ways. Number one, that's about estate planning and planning to reduce the inheritance tax bill. It can range to really complex planning all the way through to something as simple as, really interesting. We did a sort of a bit of an informal review of our clients recently, saying what do they value about working with us at Cervello. And one of the big things, particularly for some of our older clients, one of the big things was, Chris, the fact that we know that you and the Cervello team are going to be there for my kids if something happens to me, and make their life easier through that process, was one of the big benefits. And one of the things that we're really proud of, say hello to Cassie. Cassie's gonna sneak in. Morning. One of the big things that we're really proud of as a family business is that we can support families of our clients if the worst happened to them, to remove that emotional distress as much as possible by supporting them. So, if you're in a situation where you're financially you're okay, but you want to make sure that your family are going to be okay, both emotionally and financially, it might be worth giving us a shout and seeing how we can help. So there's some, hopefully I'll share some tips there that are useful. Hopefully there's some information that you might benefit from. Certainly if you need to talk any of that through, my door is clearly always open, because there's always people coming through it. But I'd be more than happy to have a chat. What I'm really excited about now is having Phil on and talking to him about the amazing work he does. So Phil, let's start with a super easy question. Tell us a bit about you.
So yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. As I know, obviously we know each other through obviously HMB and obviously the boot camps, obviously things like that. But yeah, I'm a personal trainer in this sort of Upminster Cranham area. I do kind of one-to-one personal training with my clients, largely from here, the studio that I've kind of created, the home studio I created, and obviously with the group sessions with the Fit Squad boot camp. So I guess I'm later into the industry than lots of people. It was very much a career change, a lifestyle change for me coming into personal training, and possibly. Funny enough, possibly triggered by one or more of those five triggers that you just mentioned.
What was the trigger for you? What was the trigger?
Well, it's probably going to sound a bit, to be honest, it's probably going to sound quite cliche and a bit cringy, to be fair. But I was having a conversation. I don't know. It would have been. I don't know. My eldest son Josh. He's 8 now, so he was probably about 4 or 5. And he's starting to have those kind of conversations about, as kids do, oh, what do you want to do when you're older? Normally the answer's It was a mix. I think he said he wanted to be a professional footballer and a fireman. So I don't know, not sure how he was going to find the time to fit both.
Finding the two sounds amazing.
But yeah, I might have to ask him again to see if that's changed. But we kind of went down this conversation, or this line of conversation. I said to him, basically, it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you enjoy doing it. Don't choose the things that, I basically said, don't choose the things that you think you should be choosing. Choose the things that interest you, choose the things that you're passionate about, and then everything else will come. It will give you longevity, because if you're interested, you love what you do, you'll make it work. And that was basically the line of the conversation. And I turned around to my wife, Amy, at the time. I said, I'm giving him all this I'm giving him all this advice, and it's advice that I'm not taking myself.
Yeah.
So I was kind of, I'd spent a long time, working for sort of like a FTSE 250 company. I did an apprenticeship. My background is, quite blue collar. And then, I kind of went through that. But as I moved through sort of in the company and, progressed and started doing a lot more sort of commercial roles, and I guess, becoming successful in the path that I'd chosen, I was becoming sort of more and more sort of, I guess, more and more miserable. I was getting unhealthy. I wasn't looking after myself. I kind of had this conversation with my son and realized that I was doing the opposite of what I was telling him to do. So,
it's interesting, isn't it? That perception of success can be a trap, can't it? Because you turn around and go, actually, we're comfortable, so why shouldn't we be happy? But then that stops us making that change.
Exactly. And there was very much kind of a mental process of that at the time, because I was kind of like, well, I'm sitting here kind of whinging and being miserable about things, and what have I really got to be upset about? What have I really got to be miserable about? It's sort of like imposter type, just sort of like, oh, you're, stop feeling sorry yourself, just get on with it, sort of thing. It kind of just came to a point where, from this conversation, I decided that actually I wanted to do. It didn't happen straight away. Obviously, I'm not, wasn't in a position, just to say snap my fingers. But I kind of just started sort of taking steps to do something that, I wanted to do. And a lot of that started from going through the process of, getting myself back in shape, getting myself into a healthy place, both, physically and I guess and mentally in that respect. And that kind of led me down to sort of doing what I'm doing eventually. So I was like, what, I can do this. I can actually have an impact, make a difference in other people's lives. I've kind of been through it myself, and that kind of led me into kind of retraining and starting up my own business.
Well, definitely. Particularly during lockdown, I really benefited from sort of being at the boot camp, enjoying the experience of being outdoors. And I think you do get a different, in terms of, I go to the gym, regularly and really enjoy that. But that outdoor experience that you do now, the summer's coming, I suppose you're outdoors all the time again, aren't you?
Yeah.
You do get a different feel. What was the sort of concept behind that? And why did you decide this is definitely going to be an outdoor thing?
Well, to be honest, first and foremost was more the community aspect of it, because there's lots of gyms and the fitness industry, it's it's a massively increasing industry. It has been for a number of years. But at the same time, if you look at our overall health, and in terms of mental, physical, everything, those numbers, despite us all being a little bit more aware, and the gym memberships, everything like that, those numbers are increasing. There seems to be a decline in how we feel about ourselves, our actual health. And I think because a lot of people, they do the thing, they feel like it's one of those things, isn't it? If they go to the gym because they feel they have to, not always because they want to, and it's always a bit of an internal battle, like, oh, shall I go to the gym today? I feel tired, I've had a hard day at work. Whereas actually I wanted to try to create something where the exercise wasn't necessarily the entire draw. It was the people that, the people that you go with, the friends that you get to make. The people that go to the gym but feel a bit intimidated or uncomfortable, or don't really know what to do when they get there, so they kind of just go kind of some kind of generic. So yeah, that was the inspiration. And being outdoors, especially in the summer, get outdoors. We spend so much time indoors. Get outside, get some sunshine.
Yeah.
When hopefully we are in the UK, so we have to have a little dose of reality there. But yeah, the draw was to bring people together so that they can support one another, because that becomes the motivation and the draw, not the fact it's, oh, I've got to go do exercise today.
But this is the big thing, isn't it? That community element of anything, particularly, like, I don't know about you, but there's, I mean, even though I love it, there's times when I'm just before any sort of exercise, just before I go, I'm going, should I not? Should I? And then when I go, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
But it's making that barrier, like sort of, as you say, giving people other benefits to do
Exactly.
Now I'm a firm believer in, you know, healthier body, healthier mind, more capability, more things that I can do with my life, more productive. But you know, what in your experience are the turning points most people get to before taking action to get in shape?
Well, it's interesting because if you look at, I guess, let's go the 5 triggers that you related to at the beginning. To some extent or another, they relate to a lot of other triggers, especially like in fitness as well. So changes in your life. You know, your number one trigger was changes that happen in your life. That trigger obviously very relevant to what I do. People I often get to a point where they've seen, I guess it's starting the negative side of things. So people see something either happen to someone else. They see something, someone suffering with an illness that maybe similar sort of age that maybe could have been potentially a little bit more avoidable if they'd done things a little bit different. And that sometimes gives people, you know, a little bit of a fright or a little bit of a kick up the backside. Think, actually, I can do something about this if I just do something. So you've got those. Those kind of things are, you know, are quite often, or people that maybe haven't been quite so happy with where they are, how they feel. And it just gets to the point where they, you know what, I've had enough of feeling like this, or no, sometimes it's I've had enough of looking like this, or not confident in themselves. And actually they decide that actually that's, you know, that's something that they're willing and able to make an impact on and make a change on. So, and sometimes it's, you know, something external, you know, to I say external, family, kids.
Yeah.
Setting a good example, or what they deem to be setting a good example for them. Or sometimes it's just keeping up with them, you know, as we all know, especially when, you know, as you know, once they start moving around, you're always on the go. And it's just sometimes about longevity for that, being able to actually keep up with them and actually be able to do the things with them that the kids want to do, rather than feel like you always have to sit and watch from the sidelines.
And you know what's weird? So like I think I agree. I mean, as you know, my 2 are 18 and 10, and with the youngest one, I think like play is an amazing thing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like just still being able to like have a game of like run outs and like just like sort of being able to play actively. A few weeks ago, we were over in Greenwich Park. And one of the things that I used to do, like one of my greatest memories as a kid, is rolling down the Observatory Hill in Greenwich Park. Now, the problem is, Phil, I don't know if you know this, but the problem is they've closed the hill, right? They don't let you roll down, like they've put barriers up and stuff like that. I don't know if I should be saying this, something that's going out on the internet. But they're like, if you just wander around, you can get into the hill. And, like, not roll down all of it, but roll down most of it. 44 years old, I really shouldn't be rolling down the hill. But
Why not?
No, that's true. Why
not? You got to stay young.
The experience with my kids. Do you know what I mean? It's that element of just being physically comfortable enough to still play.
Yeah,
is, I think, really important.
And that's it. I think I don't think it matters where you start, where your level are. I think that's that sense of play and enjoyment and fun, as much as possible, take it through. I mean, it's is one of the, I guess one of the things that people sometimes don't like about the gym per se is if they don't know what they're doing to start with, it doesn't seem like fun. It does feel uncomfortable. It doesn't feel very much like play. Whereas,
Yeah.
you know, if you can start with something that you enjoy, whether it be a sport, whether it be maybe it's not even exercise, like maybe just want to get outside, maybe it's hiking, walking, things like that.
Yeah.
Start with the things that you enjoy, and you're going to find that you have a lot better success at having that longevity and their motivation to continue on with it.
And talking about that sort of connection between fitness and other aspects of your life, you know, in terms of your lived experience of making that positive change to become healthier, but also more generally based on what you've read, talk to me a little bit about where that connection lies for you.
It's massive. I mean, ultimately, I mean, we could go down the statistical route and the studies, like, because there's so many of them, obviously, that show a direct correlation between physical activity of any kind of exercise, and its benefits both on your physical and mental health. Improved focus, improved motivation, improved energy, improved sleep, improved well-being, like any box it almost always ticks. And yeah, like, it just sometimes takes a bit of, like, it doesn't like, not all of us are, you know, sporty by nature. Not all of us like enjoy sports in that respect, but finding something that you can get on board with, something that you can enjoy,
Yep.
Adds to your day to day. It doesn't detract from it, because one of the big things, obviously, that especially when starting with a lot of clients, that one of the main barriers, let's say, is often
Time.
Yeah. And it's a barrier for, as we get older, as we get more responsibilities, time becomes a commodity that is in short supply. We have to start picking where we spend that time. And that's not always it's not always an easy thing to do. It's not always fun, because it often means that we're, you know, missing out, or feel like we're missing out, or saying no to other things. But often, once you if you did a simple exercise and have a look on your week of, you know, where you spend your time, because we all have free time. Most of us have, like, depending what's going on. Obviously, as you get kids, you have, you know, time that has to be, you know, time that you can't do anything about. You have to spend it over there. But if you look at time in your day, there's always things that we can do to change, to introduce something for ourselves.
Yeah.
It may not always be easy. It doesn't have to be an hour at the gym. It doesn't have to be, but increments of time. If you can find half an hour in your day, 45 minutes in your day, 3 to 5 times per week, for something to do for yourself, that's where change starts. That's where the impact lies.
So it's really interesting. I was having this conversation Sunday with somebody, funny enough, and so she, I'd never spoken to her before. We both coming out the same class, you know, just saying, how was that for you? And she was a mum of 2 young kids. So her kids were 2 and 4. It was her birthday and she was at the gym. So she was like, and I said, what do you like? What do you love about it? She went, this is time for me. Like, when I'm at home, I'm mum. And this time it allows me to just sort of not only stay fit, but also invest in my own sort of physical well-being. So I think that those invest in time, effort, and energy into your own fitness, even when you've got a sort of busy life, which a lot of us have, is really, really important. But I suppose people come to that at different stages in their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, talk to me a little bit about the range of people you work with, fitness levels, and that sort of thing.
To be honest, I've got a huge range. So I think I've got, on the one-to-one level, on the personal training side of things, I think my youngest client is 15. They're very much on their motivation, or their I guess their reason for being there is from a performance aspect. They're a swimmer. They want, obviously, they're doing they're a high level swimmer, and they're looking to introduce things into their week and into their life that they can enhance their swimming performance. Obviously, like competing at national level, just qualified. You know, I've been working with them for probably 2 or 3 months, and they've hit a few like PBs along the way. So, and it's about trying to have, obviously, it's for someone of that age, the challenges are very different. Of this particular swimmer, they're high level swim, that in terms of time, they're probably doing 18 hours of swimming a week. So I think so 8 or 9 sessions per week with their swimming club. And then obviously in between that, there's obviously studying for their GCSEs. Yeah. and they also still play football. So on a Saturday, Sunday, they're football training and matches. So
you know what, that level of training is so. But I'd imagine what you're doing there is helping them build a routine that complements the work they do.
So yeah, and that's it. So for them, it's very much a case of training to support their interest, training to add to it, not put an extra burden that's going to detract from everything else. And we have to have a certain amount of realism and reality into what they can do. Because if I said to them that they needed to spend an extra 3-4 hours a week doing strength training, it's totally unrealistic and unsustainable given everything else that they've got on their plate. Yeah. But then on the other spectrum, I've got, you know, on the other side of the coin, I've got, you know, people sort of in retirement, you know, happily retired, but actually wanting to do something to, you know, to kind of keep away the sort of the aches and pains, the knee problems, the backaches, things like that, that actually having a decent routine, not based on any real performance goals or things like that, but actually getting something into their routine keeps them active, keeps them young, and actually means that they're functionally fitter for their day to day.
The goal there is a quality of life goal, isn't it?
Exactly.
You know, I want to stay fit because I just want to enjoy more time doing active stuff.
Exactly. And then I've got clients all like kind of all in between, different ages, with some with weight loss goals, some with strength goals, some with actually they find that having someone to guide them through a routine, to take away the thinking, to take away the planning, actually keeps them on track for the rest of the week.
But you know what? I've been saying this quite a lot recently because I'm doing it a lot in my own life, right? What's interesting for me is, as somebody who, as part of my role as a business owner and financial planning for my clients and dad, is to keep people accountable. You know, part of my job is making sure my clients do what they need to do to achieve their financial goals. And part of the reason they pay me is to nudge them in the right direction.
Correct.
I realised, probably a bit too late, to be honest, that I just need nudges in every aspect of my life as well. So the big one for me was, you know, some of the people watching this might know, but they might not. I hosted a podcast with my daughter called The Kindness Project. All about people sharing amazing stories in the world. Now, Russ, who won't come on live, Phil, because he never does, but he's amazing at making sure podcast goes out on time, everything gets done. He's our producer, you know, he's our nudge in terms of that. What I wanted to do is share some of the insights from the podcast in a book. And that book has been sitting in a Word document, 50-odd thousand words, on my laptop for about a year, right? And I couldn't get, like, it was the editing bit. I just couldn't get over the mental barrier of just like sort of getting that done. So I just employed an editor to like just come along and go, right, this is what we need to do. This is the edit. You still need to do a bit of work, but let's just keep you accountable. And when I engaged at the services, it was very much Leslie Morris is her name. She's part of the H&B community. Really, really amazing lady. I've known her probably for a decade or more now. But certainly, I said to her, part of the job is just to make sure I get a nudge. and make sure that I remain on track. And what I find is and again, we'll talk a lot about the community. I mean, it is an amazing community you're building, and I've got massive amounts of respect for the work you're doing. But part of the element that motivates me is like, if I'm not trying hard enough, I just want somebody to go, give it a bit of a push. You're moving this way.
Yeah.
That nudge, even though I think I'm self-motivated, I think we all need that support, don't we? What do you think?
No, 100%. I mean, if anyone kind of follows me on my my Facebook page or my Instagram account, they'll see that I routinely tag my own personal trainer, because when you start like having you know, often coaches still need coaches, not because they don't have the knowledge, but it provides that accountability, that platform, that thing, like those exterior sort of commitments that maybe if you're left to your own devices, you don't put either as much effort in, or you allow things to sort of, you know, depending on what other things are in your week or in your month, you allow them to dominate. Whereas if you have accountability to other people, and you tell them your reasons why at the beginning, then it makes a difference, because they hold you to what you've told them that you want to achieve. So if it's 100%. and if that's what you want to achieve, they'll remind you of that. And
100%.
Yeah, and it's not about making people feel bad or anything. It's about, okay, well, it's just about an open conversation. We had, you know, this is what we've said that we want to get done. We're either going to get it done like this, or we're not quite on track. Sometimes it just gets us to ask some of those harder questions of why maybe we're not doing it. Is it really that important, or do we want to be focusing on
something else,
a different goal, something else?
And if it is just helping that person
exactly.
So tell me a story, Phil. Tell me the story that best describes the work you do with your clients.
You know what? I would say I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to name names because she'll probably be mortified. But I'm going to tell a story about one of my clients. I've not been working with for the longest, but it kind of typifies the power of what you can achieve. So this lady came to me probably January, February time, let's say. She struggled with weight for some time, but she had an injury. Okay, she doing an activity, she'd hurt her knee, and ultimately, cut long story short, she was needing to have a knee replacement. So she was needing to have a knee replacement, but she was had the date of that. It was going to be in March time. She'd started kind of putting a bit of the work together to lose some weight before surgery, but she decided that actually she'd benefit from personal training, and we kind of had quite a few long discussions about how we would approach it, things that we would do to benefit her after surgery.
Right.
So weight loss was one of our goals, but the other goal was to try to get her moving, to build some strength post surgery. And obviously she was very limited in certain things that we could do, because she didn't have one of her legs. She had, I don't know, probably 5-10% function on the knee. So obviously walking was very, you know, straight legged, couldn't bend the knee very well. But it kind of reaffirms what I do, because you don't have to have a perfect plan. You don't have to be the fittest. You don't have to be able to do everything that everybody else can do.
Yeah.
As long as you have the right attitude and the right approach to doing something, you can achieve and create progress.
And it's all adaptable, isn't it?
It is, and that's the thing. Like this client, there's tons of stuff that we couldn't do together, but it didn't stop her from doing the things that she could do. Yeah. We can all say, you know, oh, I can't do that because. Whereas actually, maybe we should be saying, well, what can I do?
Yeah.
How can I do, or what can I do instead? Rather than just writing ourselves off.
I suppose the other thing is, what's that small step? You know, what's that first incremental step towards that help?
Yeah. You know? And she's been brilliant. Obviously, she really bought into kind of the conversations that we were having. Obviously, my ethos isn't, especially around weight loss, isn't about turning your life upside down. It's about creating daily routines and habits, things that we do almost instinctively in other areas of our life, especially in, what you were talking about, obviously creating a financial plan, having freedom of not having to always have that burden on you. Once you create routines and habits and structure,
yeah,
it's not always easy, and you can't do it all at once, but once you do those kind of things, you're standing on a stepping stone. All you need to do is look at where the next stepping stone is to move to, and from there, where's the next step? You don't need to always be looking at the end of the path. One stepping stone in front, one stepping stone in front. Once you're on that stepping stone, you can focus on the next stepping stone.
but what's interesting, that element of, and I do it with my own financial plan, funny enough, just and with fitness and in other aspects. The more we can automate and not have to think about, the more we take that, we've all got to make decisions in our lives, but the more we can remove decisions that we can automate, the better. It's that element of, it's why Cassie would be less keen on this conversation, Phil. It's why our pension contributions automatically increase twice every year. Like I'll just increase our pension contribution. I say that because Cassie already thinks we pay way too much in our pension. I don't think we pay enough. But our contributions increase automatically. So I haven't got to think about it. I have got to think about making sure there's enough money there, but I haven't got to worry about the fact that that part of my financial plan, just that element, is an autopilot.
Yeah.
I book, I try to book my fitness sessions in advance.
Yeah.
That I'm benefiting the future me by making that decision early.
Correct.
And those sort of psychological elements and using those sort of techniques allows you then to, as you say, build habits and work towards a healthier lifestyle.
Exactly, and that's kind of things I talk to. Actually, in the boot camp, you see me do it in our community group. Say, commit in advance. The days that you're going to do. If something comes up, you can cancel. But if you book in advance, there's a much greater percentage that you're going to turn up, because it's already in your head that you're going to be there. If you wait till you've had a long day of work and everything else, and then you go, it's very easy to then sit there and like, you know what, I could have a night off today. I could just sit on the sofa and watch Netflix. But
yeah, and I think sometimes you do need that rest.
And that's it. And it's understanding when you need, because you can do too much.
Yeah.
It's understanding when you need to give your body a rest, and actually when you can actually take the day-to-day stuff out of the equation.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we're going back to this client. Obviously, before surgery, she was 3 stone down without ever having to do HIIT workouts or anything like that, just from getting a plan in place, having the right approach. She's had her surgery, I think she had 4 to 6 weeks off, and she's been back in 2 to 3 weeks, and now the plan's looking very different.
Yeah,
she's back to weight loss, but now we're facilitating rehab on her knee to get her function. But yeah, and she's patient. She's someone that typically is a little bit hard on herself, but it's about trying to remind her that it's not going to happen in a week. It's not going to happen in 2 weeks. It takes as long as it takes, and you can only take the steps that you need to. And it just goes to show what an impact you can have while not having to have maybe the same facilities, the same abilities as other people. You can still make a difference from where you are today.
But it's a personal journey, isn't it?
It really is.
It's a personal journey. It's that element of saying, look, it's really funny. When I was training for last year's marathon, I did it for St Francis Hospice, and they had a sports psychologist come along and talk to us about training. And he said, and I wasn't expecting this, so it was like an interesting perspective on it. He said, if you go for a run, don't focus on taking that minute off your time. Focus on whether it felt good for you. because that element of, that element of always looking at others and going, well, he can do it in 3.5 hours and I can't.
Yeah.
Is a demotivator. Whereas, did I feel happy at the end, and was I comfortable? That element is because it's your personal journey, isn't it?
Correct.
That's the reality of it. Now, one of the things that I know that you really focus on, and certainly you're doing at the minute, is building that really supportive community. And the reason that I turn up on a Saturday morning to come and train, not only because, I mean, I saw a blimp 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. That was a surprise for a Saturday morning that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
But not because it's a great, environment and stuff like that. It's because it does feel like a bunch of mates just having a really good time.
Exactly.
Talk to me about how important that community and culture is for you and why it's important.
Oh, it's hugely important. As I said, it was one of the main things. I'm sure if I went back on my social media and found a load of videos, it was one of the, when I first started the boot camp, it was one of the main things I was talking about. Not everything else, but actually saying, like, come and meet the people, like support, like, and that because that's the thing. No one. Obviously, we're not with the boot camp. We've got a huge range of people. Like we've got we've got everybody on the spectrum, and I would be mortified if I felt that people came along and felt out of place, or that they felt embarrassed, or felt that they couldn't do it. And that was, there's sometimes challenges to that, but the main thing is I never wanted people to come along and feel like they were any different to anybody else. So it was very important that people came along. They got to have an opportunity, because especially if you're coming on your own, first time, whatever, it's quite daunting. So I try to get people to introduce themselves to each other. I try, especially on when the sessions that we've got a fair few people, I try to have it so that we're multiple people per station, so that you're training with someone. So if it's your first time, it doesn't matter. You'll hopefully get to know, you'll know at least one person because you're training with them. And obviously you get a little bit of, doesn't matter if you're doing a particular exercise as well as the person you're with, it doesn't matter. Spurring you on, having a little bit of sort of camaraderie, and that's what makes it hopefully that's what makes the difference. I've had, so many people come to boot camp from, other places and whatever, and they're just like, you know what, I almost didn't call it a boot camp, just because the word boot camp sometimes is sometimes can have a bit of a negative connotation. Just feel like they're going to be, left in a crumpled heap on the floor at the end, and that's not what we're about. We're about, the idea was that you can come, have a safe space. We're in a private area. We're not in a park. No one's sitting there watching you doing what you do. No one cares in that respect. All we care about is that you do something beneficial for your health, both physical and mental. You're not doing something that's gonna potentially put you at risk. So check form, make sure you've got someone there that, if there's something that you'd maybe doing that maybe could cause a little bit of an injury, they will show you the right way to do it. But then the rest of the time, push yourself to your own abilities, your own intensities. Take the variety of movement that we've got, whether you need to make it easier or harder, and you just have some fun with it. You don't have to, there's no expectation to do a certain amount. There's no expectation to, not take a break in the middle. The expectation is that you come along, you do what you can, you try your hardest, and you have fun, and you try to be open to meet the rest of the people around you. We've got people that actually, now meet, and obviously they've become with the boot camp's only really been sort of properly functioning since probably April last year, since we came out of lockdown fully. I mean, we did launch in November, December the year before, but just over a year, and people in that time,
built firm friendships.
People have built firm friendships, which they wouldn't have had if they hadn't come along to boot camp.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. Now, I want to talk to you about nutrition, and I want to talk to you about the starting point. Unfortunately, we've run out of time.
No worries.
So what we're going to do is potentially we might do as a Havering Means business thing, as opposed to a live thing. But what I do want to make sure is people know about you, know where they can find you. And if they do want to come along to a boot camp, just where can people find you online?
Easiest way to find me is either on Facebook or Instagram. It's at Fits Squad Bootcamp. So easy to find on both Facebook and Instagram, or you can go to my website. Pretty simple to find as well, www.fitsquadbootcamp.com. Either send me a message, see what we've got going on. We'll be updating the website again soon, but obviously you can see what we've got going on. There's tons of pictures and videos of the session, so you know how big we are, we know the kind of things that we're doing. Yeah, and then obviously if you've got any questions, obviously you can WhatsApp me. I've got a button on my Facebook page. You can just send me a message. I'll always come back to you.
Fab, thank you so much. We really enjoyed having you on and talking fitness and well-being. It's been really good fun. Thank you everybody for watching Cervello Live. As usual, it's an absolute pleasure chatting to you. And again, if you've got any topics, challenges, financial that I was going to say financial or otherwise, but I don't know if I can help the otherwise ones, but financial you'd like me to cover, I'd be more than happy to do that. Simply send me an email at chris@cervellofp.co.uk and we'll make sure we include whatever challenge you're facing on a future Cervello Live show. Have a lovely day and we'll see you on Cervello Live next time.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.